How does Poppy Playtime Chapter 5 work behind the scenes? In this chapter, quite a lot happens, but there's plenty going on that you can't see to make this game work. So we're going to be breaking down everything in the game meticulously to show you all the tricks the developers use to make this spooky adventure. We'll be messing with the game too, to see how the game behaves when confronted with abnormal situations. Chapter 5 starts with Huggy Wuggy banging on the door before he eventually breaks it open. We must run for our life through the small tutorial area. As we duck down, as Huggy reaches for us, we end up on a conveyor belt like good old times after falling through the vents. We must then pull metal coverings off as Huggy smashes the glass, eventually chasing after us through the conveyor tracks. We have to open a gate with our blue hand before narrowly escaping Huggy again as we fall into a vent system. We end up sliding down to a large room with a window overlooking a cave before the floor gives out below us. We then move some boxes and make our way back into a vent. Let's pause here now. So back at the beginning, let's take a look at Huggy smashing this door. It's a glorious sight, if I must say so myself, as he punches straight through the glass, bends it forward and steps out, as he shrieks into the Naruto run pose. If Huggy manages to jump scare you, you can see that he'll move with the camera as well, which can look a bit funky. This area is more fun to explore without Huggy, so I dropped him into the void. First things first, I wanted to go back to Chapter 4's area. Normally, there's an invisible wall preventing us, even if the door is gone. But if we get around it, we are free to explore. All the plant beds are dead, and there's nothing growing. There's also holes in the wall too. A little bit out in the distance, I spotted a T-posing Huggy beneath the level. He looks so happy. The back of the room just leads out into the void though, and it is cut off. There are also a lot of side rooms in this area we can't normally access. This one off to the right is empty, and beyond the set of double doors is the void. But there's some industrial rooms we can fly through with the camera too, since we normally wouldn't see them like this. We can get a cinematic shot of the burning hallway too, since we normally run through it quickly. As we pass through the crawl space, Huggy reaches out for an aggressive high five before junk crashes down. Watching this happen in slow motion is kinda neat. Huggy will lay out completely, and then as he retracts his hand, he'll start getting up and get yoinked backwards. He'll snap to another position for a brief moment before unloading. As we enter the vent, we will be able to see Huggy walking below us. But what we can't see is that Huggy is T-posing by the wall. When we step in, he'll snap to his animation and start walking forward. When he gets to the end, he'll turn around and wait in an idle pose. If we go down by him, into this off-axis area, we can see he walked out of a door that was sealed with concrete. Getting near that door will kill us though. Huggy can't hurt us down here, and he will just stand still and wait for us to progress. We are free to explore this area though, as it's a place we usually only get a very limited view of. Everything has collision, surprisingly. If we warp farther on the track without triggering the fall, we'll see that the glass breaks on its own, and then suddenly, Huggy appears to jump scare us. So something we can't see is that Huggy normally goes around this bend. The developers actually just have him standing right here out of sight until we get past the compactors. Also, when Huggy is smashing the glass, he'll never actually break through if we aren't near him. We will die only if he hits the glass enough before we move in front of it. Look at him go. Speaking of him breaking the glass, this is what the animation looks like when it plays out in slow motion. He's very proud of his destruction by the looks of it. To mess with the game some, I wanted to start the conveyor belt chase and let Huggy run on his own, so I moved myself into the hallways. We can see Huggy will move forward, going through the tunnels, and it's pretty creepy looking. He takes some wide turns though, and clips through stuff. Watching this with a cinematic camera is kinda fun. Huggy's head will just clip through stuff too, which would look very strange if you looked behind you during the chase. He will then dive down for the vent punch as he reaches in for you. He'll slide on back, stand up, and will then unload. But now we can explore this place at our own pace. If we get rid of this first metal grate here, it will actually take us to near the end of the chase. There's a small office area we normally cannot go inside, but I go inside it anyways. This is what the interior looks like. Also, there's a model ship in here, which is neat. The door in the back won't open, and if we remove it, we can walk out of bounds. Now, when we get into this next area, there's some cool things to check out. For one, here's a look around that center column in the room. The walkway in the back leads to a solid wall, as you can see. Now normally we fall down a level, but if we skip past where we fell, we can walk up to these doors. Getting rid of one of these doors shows that it never led anywhere except into the next room's upper wall. Outside the walls, though, we can see a little deck that has containers on it, and a series of crane-like pulleys that lead way off into a cave. This area is massive, and usually these types of things end up using wrapped image renders serving as skyboxes. But this whole thing is modeled. I decided to move myself on top of the crane, and we can run all the way out into the cave. You can see that all these things hanging down below have collision, as my flare gun can land on them. However, the cave back here does not have collision. We simply fall through it. We can get a better look at this village though. It's very low poly, but we can see what looks like a factory and several buildings, possibly homes even. The cave itself goes on for quite a while, and it gets very, very bright back here. It's a very beautiful environment to check out with the camera. In the next room, if we move these boxes over here first, we can find a secret collectible. There's nothing really else in this area, so let's now move on. So we drop down below as a box falls, and we use it to help us break into this vent. As we are going through the vent, Huggy will punch down at us from up above, which then takes us to another conveyor belt. We have to hurry and open these red door scanners before Huggy can get us. We then swing over this pit and say goodbye to the blue demon. Well, for a moment, while we take a shower. In the next room, we need to turn off the gas and then twist this valve. But Huggy will Hulk smash into the room and chase us again. We run into the new hole he made and then find ourselves in an elevator. As we descend, Huggy attacks, and we must dodge him. Eventually we scan our red hand, and Huggy steals our grab pack while getting shocked, ultimately causing the elevator to crash. Let's check all this out again now, but while messing with the game. So first up, the small box that falls just appears out of nowhere. Not that interesting, but figured I'd show it. However, the vents are more interesting. As we walk through them, we can see that Huggy Wuggy will appear above them as he punches downward. Up top, his legs are just sticking in the air, and his face is smushed into the small space. He eventually retracts upwards and unloads. We can find him over here in a T-pose, and you can see here how this model is laying flat above the vent area. So it is impossible to evade Huggy if he comes after you, as you can't go back up in the vent. But I wanted to try anyways. For starters, I wanted to get into these two rooms off to the right that are off axis. They are fully explorable, and we can walk out to where Huggy spawns. Unfortunately, even back here, we are not safe, as Huggy can still kill us with his huge hitbox. Next, let's take a look and see where Huggy comes from. As we scan our red hand, we can see Huggy will spawn in behind this corner, fall down, and walk outward. He will then start swatting at the robotic arms, which act as barriers. We have to make it down here before he destroys them all. Or do we? I hacked my way back into the vent we were in previously, and now we can watch Huggy run to the end. We'll see that Huggy will stand up and return to an idle pose once he reaches the end, as his head clips through the roof like a goof. His hitbox is still huge though, so big woof. Way out in space, we can find another copy of Huggy Wuggy, just standing in his idle animation as well. He's very far away from where we are, so I'm not sure what this one is for. Moving on, after we cross the pit, Huggy retreats, and we can see he goes around this corner and just stops moving. If we go back over there, we can see that he's no longer a threat, and we can just smack him with our hands to show him who's boss. Now in the fire room, we have some other things out of bounds. Huggy Wuggy is stored here until he is needed. He's just standing on a small piece of ground in a T-pose, menacingly. Over here we can find Huggy punching outward, over and over. More info on that very soon. Now when we grab the handle down below, Huggy will explode out the wall like the Kool-Aid Man in a war. Normally your vision is obscured by special effects, but he swings his stump arm through his body. Out of bounds, we'll see he is now gone. Huggy will crawl over this section and then yell at us as the chase begins. At the elevator, we can see that after we shut the door on Huggy, the map around us will unload, and he will start to slowly fall. The reaching, or punching Huggy is still out of bounds, but now you can see how he's actually used for this elevator scene. He will be moved above the areas he will punch through, and they'll just slide him in and out as he punches your ride full of holes. It's actually quite clever, and I like how they pulled this scene off. It's like reverse Whack-A-Wuggy. When we lose the grab pack, we'll see Huggy will reach down and grab it, as his body is floating above. After getting shocked, we normally get turned around, and then Huggy's arm elongates again to grab it and pull it out of view. The grab pack unloads, and Huggy and the elevator both start traveling downward, eventually leading to a scene load as it crashes. Once we awaken, we're in a dark place. We must navigate through this area while activating light switches, so the Outimals lurking in the dark don't jump scare us. We repeat this process for a while, until we pick up Chip from the game Glitched Out, who acts as both a flashlight and blacklight. We eventually find a master key, and use it on this push door from behind with no keyhole. Wait, what? Anyways, soon after we get mugged by this dude, who plans on harvesting our organs. Before the gremlin, Giblet saves us. We follow him back, get a surprise visit from the prototype, and then end up in his crib. He sends us down to the boilers as we head through a few rooms, ultimately running into Omega Bron, who's getting eaten like SpongeBob in a Meat Canyon video. We jack the secret formula from Bron's mouth, giving us our grab pack, and then acquire a new hand. This lets us pressurize stuff and move this thing over to make a bridge, thus leading to a very frustrating climbing section that I'd rather not remember. But now that the recap's done, let's get weird. So right behind the elevator, we'll find a pack of 4 Outimals frozen in the void. Not sure why they are here, but if we look across the map, we'll see them everywhere. We can get some close-ups too, and really check these guys out. The very first one that runs out after the first light goes through this doorway and then gets pulled underground like so. Also, the jump scares are a bit odd, as we can see they jump at us, pummel our face in, T-pose in dominance, and then warp back to where they were. This guy here looks extra creepy, and I just wanted to show him off. Speaking of, there's a light switch you hit, and this guy will just run through a paper. You can see this in regular gameplay too, which is a bit jarring. This next area doesn't really make sense to me. So you cross over these pipes as some critters are chatting, but you can jump down on top of the tent safely, and then fall a distance of 2 feet and die anywhere in the room. Or you can fall a distance of 7 feet in the next room and survive. I feel like having an animation of the critters killing you would have made this make more sense. So when we come around this corner, we can watch this guy jump out of the ground and beat us up. We can also for some reason see Giblet's staff floating from this tent. Meanwhile, underground Giblet has a really long arm, just waiting to attack our kidnapper. He will jump out of the ground as his staff warps into his hand, and the attacker will run off to the side as they freeze in place, unloading a moment later. When Giblet opens the metal gate, if we stand in front of him, he'll just pick us up with it. He's a very strong lad. In the next room, as we take shelter, we'll see the prototype stroll up. Normally you can't see his face yet, nor his T-posing, 3-armed, questionable salute, but only the legs need to be animated for this shot. We'll watch him prance around before he ends up stabbing a critter with his 40-inch stilettos. His other mother hand then scoops them up as they float in space before unloading. I feel like if you move this guy's circle face down to his legs, we'd have Choo Choo Charles on our hands, with a dash of Pomni. After ruining our day, the prototype will walk off into the wall and unload, only to reappear, stab the ground, and vanish a moment later. That was quite the close one. Next, if we peer outside Giblet's window, we'll see a giant pile of trash and a cave. If we zoom out through this, we'll see that it's several layers lined up in 3D space to create the illusion of a giant environment, unlike the fully modeled cave we saw earlier. On our way to Big Bron, if you climb up this section over here, you can travel through the vents and get into this room for an audio tape. This podcast will last you all the way into Bron's place. Bron's looking pretty glorious up top for all the turmoil that's going on down below. If we stop the structure on the middle bridge, we can jump across for another audio tape. Beyond this, the scaffolding room with the ceiling handles doesn't really have anything remarkable in it, as I wasn't able to find anything out of bounds. This then leads us to the Biodiversity Labs. So let's press on into the strange plant area. First up, we break some tree roots and destroy the forbidden syrup, eventually bursting this large mass to clear the way ahead. After a quick shower, you'll head to the utility room, meet Chum Chompkins on the way out, and see Giblet once again. Up ahead, you'll complete a puzzle to cross the gap, exploring this room, where you ultimately obtain the magnetic power-up for your grab pack. In the room ahead, the player catches a glimpse of the prototype while traversing this tunnel, eventually reuniting with our pals Giblet and Chum. The prototype reappears here, forcing Chum to hide the player in his mouth to keep him safe. We'll put a pin in the recap for now and rewind time. So as we return to the biodiversity entrance, we can have another look at this area from a different perspective. Honestly, I moved the camera around in this area for quite a bit, since it was cool to see so much greenery, having spent most of the game surrounded by steel and concrete. Also, I'm not certain, but I believe the red flowers on these vines are poppy flowers, but it's hard to say considering they're full of this gross sap stuff. Still throwing it back to my 2021 theory that these things are basically like Resident Evil 5's red progenitor flowers. All in all, this area was really refreshing, which offsets the man-made horrors beyond comprehension. While I was exploring this area, I found this vent that led to a room containing a pretty familiar face. That's right, Lemon is back, and they brought some friends. There are 3 copies of this character present in this little bowl, 4 if you count the spooky ghost one sitting on top. It's mostly transparent and has no discernible features beyond its shape, but still recognizable as everyone's favorite genetically modified citrus. Sorry, annoying orange. In the room ahead, we'll find this huge root system stemming from a freaky tree, and on it are these terrifying face-shaped growths. I don't know if these are fruits or something more sinister, but they are way more scarier when viewed up close like this. Part of me wants to know what exactly we're looking at here, but then again, sometimes not knowing is better. If we pull the camera back so we can view the level from an outside perspective, we can see that this entire map is a cylinder-shaped tower with this huge plant taking up most of the inside. There are tons of pipes and wires occupying the outer walls, and what interested me more is this hidden room off to the side. We can see this from the floor below, but can never get high enough to see inside, meaning it was left unfurnished so as not to waste resources. Despite being an innocent side room, it has a weird energy to it that kinda creeps me out. Back in the main area, I looked up at the slew of faces and decided that destroying the ball of sap may be a bad idea. Instead, I forcefully removed the vines blocking the doorway and then eventually the door itself. But unfortunately, it wasn't that easy. Despite there being nothing here to block our way, there's apparently an invisible barrier present that prevents entry before the goop balloon is busted. I wasn't going back looking like a fool though, and so I forced my way through the barrier anyway. Despite completing practically none of the previous puzzles, the chamber still functioned, and the door behind me closed as expected. I can continue on as usual, only now I'm in the good graces of the haunted tree faces. Not much happens until our meeting with Giblet and Chum, and speaking of which, we can now watch this interaction from another angle. When we finish the electricity puzzle and leave, Chum seems to appear out of nowhere. But from another perspective, you'll see that this is literally the case. Chum appears in an instant, turning the corner to grab you before both of these characters walk off. When Giblet appears, he sort of glitches a bit as his model is warped into the map, stretching his little legs to look a bit taller. These guys lead you into the rooms ahead, but they take a detour that we're apparently not cool enough to use. What's funny is that this door doesn't lead anywhere, and they just stop inside this shadowy box beyond the door. It's kind of hilarious because they seem so awkward here. Almost like they don't know what to do from this point, so they're just hanging out. We'll run into the fellas not long after, only this time they're overlooking the room below. While checking this out, I realized that Giblet wasn't speaking to us at all. We could hear his voice, but his mouth never moved while I was watching him. Is it possible that the prototype was the real voice we heard, and that's why Giblet's mouth never moved? Probably not, but it sounds cool, so we'll roll with it. Anyway, I didn't feel like doing this whole section over again, so I channeled my inner engineer and moved it across the room manually. This is not how the game wants this puzzle solved, but despite this, I was able to cross. Unfortunately though, the platform didn't like my methods, and so it decided to leave. It did so by clipping through the wall and just sort of flying away. I don't know what the heck I did to cause this, but it's definitely glorious. Jumping ahead a bit, we arrive at this small cave area where the prototype is seen leaving through this tunnel. It turns out this character is already here waiting for us this whole time. And when we enter the room, they'll shuffle up the ramp and disappear. Another scare takes place here too, this time being a shadow that passes behind the wall when we approach. What's weird is that I couldn't find what was casting it, and the shadow will just pass through the door before vanishing. In an earlier chapter, they did the same thing, and it was just a video file they projected on the wall. During the following puzzle, I moved the camera out of bounds to explore a bit and found these two just chilling out here. They're just looping in their idle animations, and I'm pretty sure these are the same instances of said characters we meet up with in just a bit. There's actually a scare in this room that I didn't initially notice too. When you approach from the balcony up above, the prototype will appear in this hallway in the back of the room and walk across. This model is one stretched boy, and once out of sight, he passes through the wall and unloads. Now, after being eaten by Chum, we're taken into another room where he spits you out, pats you on the head, and sends you on your way. In this section of the game, we'll obtain a conductor hand that allows you to use different charges to solve puzzles. Your goal is to obtain these discs, which you then take to a machine where it simulates the memories stored inside. These memories are played from Huggy Wuggy's perspective, and in the first 3 memories, you'll place toy blocks in the box, being given a controlled shock for each mistake. No exotic butters, unfortunately. The second memory has you inside a room with music and lights, following the symbols on the floor to continue the game. Unruly toys get thrown to the bad toy box, and this grows more chaotic as the game continues. In the final memory, you're wheeled to the conditioning room, breaking free of your constraints and going on a rampage as Huggy reaches his boiling point. So restarting this section, the first thing I want to mention is the vents up ahead. There are 3 entrances here, but I never noticed a difference when using them. From out of bounds is actually a big mess of ducts, and something we can now see is this Outimal hiding in the very top of these vents. I never saw this creature during gameplay, so I would have never known it was here. I broke into this hallway to explore a bit, but there's nothing here beyond a view straight into the abyss. Anyways, dropping down to the level again leads you to Chum and Giblet, and after handing the papers off, Chum is forced to hide you in his mouth to evade the prototype. When watching this scene with the game's lighting effects still intact, you'll see that the room goes completely dark to help obscure what's happening behind the scenes. We can't really see anything like this though, so we're going to flick the lights on for this scene. Now that we can see, you'll notice that Chum has definitely seen better days. His face is missing, and a ton of fur has vanished as well. But since we're inside his jaws during this time, you would never know it. After a bit, the prototype appears, simply warping into the map and walking through a wall to cross our line of sight. We can barely see him, which helps obscure the fact that he's flying and clipping through the ceiling. This gives the desired appearance from inside Chum's mouth. But outside, it just looks a bit silly. Chum just sort of slides off at the end here, hitting a loading zone where the next section of the level populates. After spitting you out, Chum says his goodbyes and departs, walking around the corner and vanishing, as everyone here seems to enjoy doing. In the next area, you'll find a broken balcony up above that crumbles when you attempt to cross it. I wanted to see what was up here for myself though. By moving myself to the other side, I was able to walk past these boxes and into the hallway behind it. The door doesn't open though, and this hallway just leads to a wall out of sight. I don't know what I was hoping for back here, but I'm still disappointed. Jumping ahead a bit, we can enter the first memory. During this process, I moved the camera out of the machine, and I learned that the pixelated effect doesn't take place in the machine. The entire camera is affected by this pixelation filter, and it's way more jarring than I expected. Now inside the memory, we can watch this cutscene as Huggy wakes up, and as you might expect, only his arms are present. They stretch upwards as he stands up, and then vanish as the player model takes their place. If we take a look at the space from out of bounds, you'll see that this area is a singular room loaded in, with nothing but an empty hallway attached to it. Beneath this level though, there's something the devs forgot to remove before packaging the game for release. There's a red button with text above it that says, "Press to start memory." This asset was likely used during playtesting to load in this segment of the game fast. That way they don't have to replay the whole section while verifying everything loads in and functions correctly. If we put the wrong block in during the minigame, Huggy will be shocked to correct his decision making. You can watch this in slow motion, where you can see that the electricity is really these small blue particles shaking aggressively in front of the camera. Like this, it looks less like electricity and more like a swarm of blue little bugs attacking Huggy. From this point, you'll have to obtain the following disc by rerouting the gas and breaking through a window upstairs. This whole process takes a fair bit of time, so I thought it made more sense to break through the glass early. There's no red gas, but I still died instantly when walking inside. To get around this, I broke the entire wall down instead, and this allowed me to just grab the disc from the hallway and carry it back to the machine. Entering the second memory, we can do a little exploring. First and foremost, directly outside the play area, we can find a piece of text floating just beyond the wall. It's literally just the word text at the moment, but that will change shortly. Like the first memory, there's another button here with the same text as before, only this time it's facing inside the level instead of being placed beneath it. After dancing with the toys for a bit, we're told to dispose of the bad toy. This whole process is super grim, but hopefully it's not as bad as it seems. When we drop the toy into the box, it will just pass through the shadowy barrier and fall straight down. They'll pass through the floor and go out of bounds where they'll unload. When the toys begin falling from the ceiling above, you'll see that there are no chutes involved. The toys are just loading in, clipping through the ceiling, where they fall straight down. Where are these toys coming from? I can understand now why Huggy gets so worked up about it. Outside the level, we can additionally find the boxes used in the previous memory occupying this empty space. They're in the same position as before, which makes me believe these memories are all lined up in the same location. If we look beneath the level, there were a couple of platforms down here that were probably left here by mistake. They match some of the textures used in this area, but it's hard to say if they serve a real purpose. In the third memory, we're wheeled down this hallway by a worker who is taking you to a conditioning room. From another angle, the worker is simply sliding across the floor with no visible walking animations. Huggy doesn't exist at this point either, nor is there any equipment to transport him. This whole cutscene is just a lone worker ice skating down the hallway, which is pretty glorious. Inside the room ahead, there's another worker behind the glass, though he's completely static at this point since he can't be seen by the player yet. Moving the camera back, we'll get a better look at this area, and doing so shows us that there are two different hallways here. The one we enter from, and this one, where the final cutscene takes place. We'll be taking a look at this in a second though. Huggy's restraints just sort of appear when we arrive, and after breaking out, this worker goes into a total panic. He's freaking out, and honestly I can't blame him, considering a floating pair of arms is just looming over him right now. As the end cutscene takes place, you can see a worker stuck inside the door over here in an A pose, but the action is taking place on the other side. As soon as the cutscene starts and Huggy chases after the worker, he bolts for the door with chairs and other equipment exploding into the air. In slow motion, this is an epic chase, with Huggy's floating arms obliterating everything in their path. It's funny because the chairs and stuff explode with what looks like electricity and smoke, which doesn't make a ton of sense. At the end of the chase, Huggy T-poses on the worker for a second, lunging forward and grabbing him with a single arm. After completing the memories, we'll gain access to the door ahead, starting a chase with Huggy Wuggy that leads you into the vents. Huggy falls with you as the vent breaks, only to be distracted by this projection of Kissy on the wall. From here, you'll evade our big blue friend while grabbing batteries hidden throughout the room. Once all the batteries are in place, you'll head through this big door, leaving Huggy behind and continuing onwards. So before we even start the chase, I moved the camera down this hallway and found that Huggy is already waiting for us, although he's striking a pretty solid T-pose. He stays here until we hit the trigger inside the hallway, where he instantly snaps into this animation and heads through the door, barreling at the player. He hit me, and the jump scare kinda broke for a second, only for his model to continue sliding down the hallway. This chase sequence is pretty typical for a Huggy pursuit, though something interesting takes place in the vents. When viewed like this, we can see that the old copy of Huggy unloads, as this cutscene version takes its place. The vent has completely disappeared as well, with a giant hole opening in the ceiling. I tried breaking this chase a little bit by freezing Huggy and running ahead, but his part of the level unloaded because I was too far away, so he just kind of fell into the abyss. Whoops! Once we've fallen down into this area, you can see that there's an extra Huggy too. After one version breaks through the wall and walks through another, this version begins freely patrolling the area while we hunt for batteries. As for stuff out of bounds, there really isn't much here. That said though, I wanted to mess with Huggy a bit while we're here. First, I tried making Huggy incredibly fast to see how different this section plays out. What resulted was an absolute nightmare. He wasn't super fast when just walking, but after I called him over using the projector, he became the real blue blur. What followed was probably the biggest jump scare I ever experienced in Poppy Playtime, when he flew past the door and snatched me up. Not cool, man. Next, I had the idea to shrink him down to see if it was any easier. If anything, it became way funnier, since he moved at the same speed. But our enemy was a microscopic Huggy that had the power to insta-kill me, so it was no less terrifying. I learned at this point that even if Huggy is made super wide, his jump scare model remains a regular size. That doesn't make this any less amazing though. Just look at him go. I felt I messed with Huggy enough by this point, so I forced the exit door open and began to head through, and somehow this still broke Huggy. His animation stopped and he hunched over, sliding around in the same pose while trying to get me. Despite freezing here, when I ran in front of him he still saw me, and began chasing me while never changing poses. This was a mixture of goofy and terrifying, so I don't really know how to feel. Anyways, let's move on, shall we? So we've just escaped Huggy as we make our way through this promising door, following with loading into the next section. Seeing a colorful house in the distance, we'll find ourselves in this place that seems like it'd normally be a fun-filled time. We have to remember though, almost everything we've encountered in Playtime Co. is trying to end us. Who was that? Finding a power source, we'll be able to utilize this ice cream truck that's sitting here, as it'll allow us to progress. Coming to a stop, you'll notice a repeating theme here, as we're tasked with finding another power source, which will in turn allow us to start up the truck again. We'll rinse and repeat at the next stop, which will bring us that much closer to the dollhouse. This next and final drive with the ice cream truck will be abrupt though, as we crash through a gate and stop at the mouth of this tunnel. This will follow with our grand introduction to Miss Lily Lovebraids. In her excitement, she'll eventually start wrapping us up in her hair, stressing that we're going to have fun. We then are kidnapped and taken into the house, but let's go back and take another look at everything we just went through. Prior to when I was making my way into Lily's domain, Huggy was putting on a creep show as he really wanted to join us. However, when loading into the next section, you'll see how our initial location was within this grassy field as it loads in. While observing this transition with the camera, I of course doomed my character while doing this, as my character did not change positions and then fell endlessly into the abyss. It was cool to see the size difference between these two sections though, as you can clearly see. There's a lot to take in here presently, as we pan over this entire area with just a small portion of the landscape unloaded. This was curious to see, as there's a lookout spot at the top of this tree we can go to. It's too bad there's no way we could get up here and potentially use the telescope, perhaps revealing Lily being Lily. You'll see that most of these doors we come across lead nowhere, but that's when I went in for a closer look, where we can see Lily's shadow normally. This ends up being just that. Lily's shadow will appear, as you can see here, with no sign of Lily herself. Taking a ride in the ice cream truck for the first time doesn't reveal much of anything though, as you'll see. This caused me to fall through the map again, but instead of restarting this time, I brought myself back up. However, I went a tad too high, resulting with this long fall back down into the roof of this entire room. As you can see though, the player is able to move along the entirety of this ceiling. This is when I tested the lawn care of this place and dove into the room from here. I had a sneaking suspicion that this grassy field was fake, and yeah, I was right. But let's look at these balloons as we pop them. In slow motion, they briefly distort at this speed, eventually disappearing. There's a tape here we can collect and watch within this treehouse, but moving on, I ended up leading the way for the truck as we made our way through the tunnel. The tunnel is mostly loaded now, along with the other portion of it, with all the balloons, etc. I was going to leave the truck down here at this point and just push my way through. Joke's on me though, as the rest of this tunnel has zero collision, resulting with another fall into the abyss. Unglorious. Getting up here, where we're about to encounter Lily, I decided to make my way to the front door of the dollhouse instead. As you can see, we are able to do this to a degree, but that grass is still a no-go. Doesn't really matter though, as you can see, there isn't much to explore within this dollhouse, as it is basically vacant. When Lily approaches us, you can see it's more so that she'll just appear behind us. Her hair is bunched up at first, and will then eventually begin unraveling as she talks with us. I forgot to mention though, that we're technically dealing with two people here. The head she's holding with her hair is Candy, minus the cat part, and we can hear Lily speak as if it's a person, but we'll touch more on that a little later. The hair that she uses to bind us up with was interesting to watch in action. It's just these long strips of hair that will spawn in on our person, making for a peculiar sight. Clearly, she's having the time of her life while doing this though. Sheesh. Her model will strike a T-pose once the scene is over, resulting with what you're presently seeing, as her hair shoots out horizontally, along with more hair laying at her feet. The level will unload, with the interior of the dollhouse loading in off in the distance. Let's go ahead and carry on as we normally would though. So we have officially been abducted by Lily, as we're in the dollhouse now. She'll ask us to go retrieve some crumpets, which leads us to the basement, as we discover Kissy and Poppy being held captive down here. Not being able to help them at the moment, we'll enter this oven, where we'll find the crumpets that Lily's asked us to retrieve. Giving her the crumpets as requested, we'll follow with having to prepare for the tea party. This basically turns into a scavenger hunt for all of Lily's friends. Each one needs to be freed one way or another, involving a bit of investigation overall. Finding all the friends then leads to following her to the kitchen as she asks us to return her recipe book. This in turn reveals a secret room, which will eventually lead to a more industrial-looking area where we find Lily's bedroom. In the bed, we'll see the remains of Miss Gracie, who Lily used to be. If we use this fire pad, we can get the key we've been looking for. Taking the key alerts Lily, which prompts us to hide in this room as a cutscene plays out with Lily. She's not happy, and now we need to go free Poppy and Kissy. Getting down here, it'll turn into another puzzle, which reveals this little area back here that then leads to us having the fire pad we need. Lily will interrupt us at the vent, but we can ultimately free Poppy and Kissy and make a run for it. Unfortunately, the mission is foiled, and we're forced to go along with Lily's game, as we need to follow the glowing trail. Succeeding here ends in failure though, as we'll still get caught by Lily. Okay, time to rewind and take a closer look at all this. When loading into the dollhouse, you can see how it's roughly around the area where the exterior of the dollhouse was. Going in for a closer look, we can see how Lily is unwrapping her hair, just like how we saw out in the tunnel. I had once again screwed up and didn't anticipate the camera pulling me back to where I initially was, which resulted with this out-of-body experience as I'm ripped away from the house. However, starting over, we're able to see how the hair is hidden as it's merely just beneath us. After messing with some stuff, we are able to get an overall look at this existing interior as we fly about it. Hey look, it's Kissy and Poppy. They seem reasonably unpleased. While taking this overall look at the interior, I'm sure you noticed this model of Lily that's out here. It's a T-posed Lily that's floating right next to the main hall. She's sporting the Goro haircut from Mortal Kombat. There's also a gold trophy in this piano room, which we'll get back to shortly, along with this battery port, which we'll also get back to. You're going to notice throughout this section that you never really escape the looming gaze of Lily. And yeah, it's unsettling. However, when going downstairs to get the crumpets, you'll see how Kissy grabs us when initiating this cutscene. It's an impressive catch by Kissy, but nonetheless, a creepy one to observe, as she pulls us into the door. You can see our magnet bracelets don't come with us though, which was curious to see. I was going to try and get back here, but realized I'd have no power to use these pads. Plus, she's watching. I did break my way into Poppy and Kissy's cell though, which had unsurprising results. They continued to be hopeless, as my presence was unable to give them the morale needed to get out of there. Very unfortunate. The crumpets are mine though, and Lily's happy. For now, that is. When asking to retrieve her friends for the tea party, she'll come back to this room where she'll just basically sit. So I acquired the first toy friend as we free him from this contraption, only to get stuck within a piano, which results with us needing to play specific keys to free him. I didn't notice the first time playing, but Lily can be seen in that hidden bathroom across the way. We can see how she'll appear here once we walk out onto the balcony. She'll just stand there as the wall rotates about, following with her laughing and unloading in the midst of it all. A similar instance takes place in the garage as well. She'll be standing here in a T-pose, and will be rotated behind the wall once we approach the door to the garage. As soon as it begins to rotate, the model will change its pose as it remains like this, disappearing as soon as the wall makes a full rotation. Remember that battery port? Well, looks like we have that battery now. Placing this into the hidden port allows us to use this lever, which in turn grants us access to this room, where we can find another music sheet. This makes sense, as we can see the piano from here as well. Playing the appropriate keys will reward us with that golden trophy we had seen earlier. Once gaining access to the industrial area, we can see how it's fully loaded in along the side of the dollhouse interior. Lily, in the unloaded kitchen, is still not letting us out of her sight though. This tracks, because this is when I tried getting down into the lower level of this industrial area, which was an immediate fail. There must be some kind of insta-kill barrier down here, if I had to guess. We've now made it to Lily's bedroom, where Gracie Green Skeleton is in that bed. When entering this cutscene, we can see how she's at the door already, as she'll just walk through the lock. We'll normally see the rest of what she does beyond this point, but when leaving, you'll see the door has shut already, and she'll just run towards it, unloading right as she gets to it. Candy will still be there, as we can see the head floating out here, eventually unloading as well though. The layout of the vents is simple enough when getting back to the main hall, but this is where I noticed Lily again, as I had not caught this before. We can see her walking to this back hall, where she'll eventually unload once out of our sight. Time to free this sad duo though. When breaking this ice, Lily will show up for a brief cutscene. When going in for a closer look, I could have sworn Lily was wearing glasses when I first recorded this. However, looking at it now, I believe it was her eyelashes that were briefly glitching out. She'll have her spiel though, and eventually leave. She'll make a Michael Jackson-like exit as she slides away, following with her unloading. I was sort of freaking myself out here with this part because I forgot that it's normally a real dark scene. So when coming to check on Kissy and Poppy, I did not realize that they'll just stand in particular areas as we progress. With this view, it shows how they'll just warp around the area, giving the impression that they are traversing about with us. However, the crisscross hair will return as we get wrapped up in this next scene. Kissy shows off some of her own moves as she slides in from behind to enter the cutscene. It's sort of fun to watch it take place from this perspective as she almost appears to be flying. They'll head up the stairs where they'll eventually all unload. Now we have to follow this glowing trail though. Having this extremely improved visibility allows us to navigate this a little more easily. Not to mention the repeated times of running it. Lily never really follows us during this, as it'll just be an instant kill when failing to follow the rules. I tried to escape her grasp here, but as you can see, she is inevitable. Interestingly, we can find Poppy just chilling by the star door down here. We'll find the Poppy and Kissy model up here though, which is where we'll end up getting caught. When looking more closely at this room, I found one of the glitching hand scanners, which I lazily pulled out and scanned. I even pulled these two over in an attempt to make a run for it with them. But even after multiple third-degree burns, they weren't budging. Lily will once again appear here as we're captured though, resulting with some more hair binding, as you can see. With that, let's continue on as we're all caught up. We're now being held captive at the tea party, as we failed to rescue Poppy and Kissy. Lily and Candy will babble amongst themselves, being excited that the special guests will be there soon. It's probably not too much of a surprise at this point, but the special guest turns out to be the prototype. This glorious, scorpion-like, needle-handed clown monster that belongs in either a digital circus or a hotel for has-beens. A back-and-forth conversation will take place here, where Candy takes a fatal blow, as it eventually follows with the prototype cracking Poppy's head. Lily's greed allows Kissy to break free from her hair, which results with this intense attack by Kissy. However, the chase is now on. We basically have to evade Lily as we make our way through this section in a timely manner, because she'll start counting down if we take too long. It'll lead to us going outside, where we'll have to get up on these hanging cloud platforms. Once successfully navigating them, Lily will catch up and tell us how she really feels, giving us the time we need to set her demise in motion. Glorious. Let's take one last closer look at everything we just encountered though. So, when this tea party cutscene begins, I noticed that Lily was at this rotating wall again, as she rotated back into the compartment. This is when I made the unfortunate discovery that this tea party scene isn't explorable. It is in fact a pre-rendered video file. They probably did this because optimization for this scene and having it look right in all machines and post-processing combinations was a problem. There are leftover animation files for this in the game though. More on that later. We can see our magnetic bracelets are still up above, and we are able to take a look at the layout of the wrecked version of the dollhouse. It's literally opened up like an actual dollhouse that a kid's been playing with, as you can see. While doing some exploring down below, this is when I came across these stacked models of Lily that were way over here. You'll notice that one vanishes and comes back while I was looking at them. They are the kill cam models of Lily, which is why we saw the one disappear, because it was jump scaring me at the moment. However, when the cinematic cutscene ends, we can now see the prototype as he's making a run for it. He'll make his way out to the house, where he runs off and unloads in front of the garage. Kissy can be seen running in place behind us too, waiting for her cue. Watching her run is pretty funny. But as you already know, we can't follow them normally. Doesn't matter though, because as soon as they make their way into this hall, they both unload. We can observe Lily spawning behind the door when we try to follow Kissy and Poppy. I was also able to dodge Lily here as I got back on the stairs safely. She's clearly not happy with her antics. She'll reach this door like usual, but it'll remain open, as she'll just stand there. This is when I try to cut through this debris to make my escape. Like the lower area of the industrial room, it's a kill zone, as you can see here viciously ending me. I tried freezing her here, and it did not work, which turned the chase into a more terrifying one, as she tracked me down while suffering paralysis. The hair we'll see, that's destroying our path here, will sink down into the darkness of this lower part of the industrial area. It'll lay down here indefinitely once completing its action though. Moving on, I tricked her here as I clipped through this door. This made it where she continuously banged on the door. It was pretty fun to get a closer look at, taking in all her rage, one aggressive knock after another. Terrifying, nonetheless. Getting outside, we can see how she'll run towards this window we escaped from as she comes to a stop in the debris, eventually unloading. She'll be up on top of the roof at this point though, as you can see. Once making it to the end of this chase, we'll see how she's automatically hanging from this last cloud platform we are on. Her time has come to an end though, as we drop this fool from the sky. It's a satisfying death, given all these stress-inducing situations she's put us through. The platform was coming in and out for me, visually that is, but it did allow us to see the full impact it had on poor Lily. Okay, everyone wave goodbye to the crazy lady. Now that we've finished off Lily, we have finally reached the Reanimation Labs. As we come around this corner, Giblet pops out the vent, and eventually leads us to a sad cutscene with Kissy and Poppy. We then smash open a vent, grab a very easy to miss tape, and then enter a series of hallways in an area called Proliferation. You can skip most of this next part, but if you want a collectible, you'll move this lever, turn some wheels in this maze-like area, and then continue on after grabbing your plush. The prototype can be seen if you do this too. Next up, we'll make our way into this room where we can grab a Le Mans trophy and search for various numbers to give us a code to move forward. We then solve an electrical puzzle. We'll pause the recap there. First and foremost, this area we are in is a new map. So if we zoom out, we'll only see the immediate places around us as we had just gone through a loading zone. If we fly around though, we'll find Kissy Missy walking in place in the room up ahead. She's looking a bit rough. And underneath this repeating walk cycle, we can find Broken Poppy walking inside a frozen Giblet. These are all stored inside the cutscene room we'll be in later. Now, as we make our way to this, a sealed room off to the left has a bunch of boxes falling in it. We can see that nothing actually moves these boxes, and they simply fall. I think we're supposed to believe Giblet moved them while entering the vent. If we go into this room by hacking, we can see that the boxes have some crazy physics if we try to walk over them. We are free to explore this off-limits room, as there aren't any other barriers blocking us from doing so. And we can see that the vent inside leads to nowhere. Up ahead, Giblet will just spawn into this floor vent and come out to start the cutscene. We can see he uses magic to open the vent in front of him. If we go and check the room out, Kissy and Poppy will already be sitting on the floor. We can get a good look at them in this state to see just how badly damaged Poppy really is. Rewinding slightly, we'll see that Giblet will slide across the room once we hit the cutscene trigger. A moment later, he'll warp into the vent as Poppy and Kissy snap to the next poses. Anyway, here's an eye-level view of this cutscene from a slightly different perspective. You can really appreciate just how much effort went into the animations for these short moments. Of course, if we skip the cutscene trigger, we can enter this room early, but none of the characters can be interacted with. Downstairs, we can find an Outimal that will run around a corner, and following it shows that it just vanishes. What's kind of funny is that later on, there is another Outimal we can encounter, who also runs and vanishes, and we don't even need a camera hack to see this. If we just run at the Outimal and turn the corner, we'll see it unload. Whoops. We can see that the plush is stored back here inside the liquid like this. But now let's look at the prototype. So the prototype's arm gets pulled around this corner like so. But what you normally can't see is that the arm is stretched and the prototype's body is standing in a T-pose inside this wall. As the arm comes inward, the prototype then vanishes. But his face was essentially behind this slash mark in the wall. As we move to the lower level, we can take a look out of bounds to find something left behind. So this proliferation sign downstairs has old developer text behind it that says Applied Sciences, probably indicating that's what this area used to be called. I checked out a few more areas out of bounds in this section, but didn't find anything else out there. There is one of those hidden hand scanners though, so there's that. And if you got all the secret hand scanners, you'd get a dancing Pianosaurus as a reward. So that's a thing. Bro lives! Inside the room where we need the code, we can see the liquid in this container is a textured cylinder that slides up and then down out of the bottom of the machine like a post-apocalyptic push-pop. Nice! The hallways above the electrical puzzle don't have anything in them beyond what you can see, in case you were curious, and the door leads to the void. Let's press on now. So we are now in the Grand Stitchery area. We need to find the code 231 hidden on the wall, and then punch it in to access a staircase downward. This leads to a quick hot and cold puzzle, where we freeze and break this, and then burn the chain on a door. We find ourselves a battery, and use it to open the Grand Stitchery. Now this room was like a giant game of Bop It, where you must ultimately open 4 locks to pass through. So you'll pull out batteries, hop around doing an electrical puzzle, and more, until you eventually light up all the door panels and can exit. In the next area, we can grab a doll, and also a battery that we need to open this door over here. This hallway hits us with a loading screen, and as we step outward, we're going to get high-fived in the face by Huggy as it kicks off another chase. We need to run like usual and open this hand scanner to unlock this door. Inside, we'll swap this battery's location to open this next door, as Huggy breaks through to chase us. We'll embrace the pain, or pull ourselves over this sludge, as Huggy closes in, eventually catching us. Kissy Missy saves the day though, and Huggy and Kissy show a touching moment. Of course, this is only temporary. As Huggy gets anime backstabbed, the prototype then stabs Kissy as well, before chasing us into a nearby train. We'll pause all this for now and rewind. So back in the Stitchery area, we can spot another wrong side Outimal. And then after we make our way down the staircase, we can find a shadow of one running along the wall. It will run around this bend and then stop. In the same area, we can catch a glimpse of the prototype popping up in the Stitchery window. He very quickly pulls out a frame normally, so we can see that he goes over here. He then eventually unloads. The Stitchery itself doesn't have a lot going on, but we can take a look at the Outimals under the stitching hands from a different perspective. You can see all the fleshy tissue inside their fabric casing. Other than the hands at work, there isn't much else to see here. When we hit the loading zone in this hallway, you can see how everything will swap out. We actually get warped upwards as the new map loads above us. Well, we would, if I didn't accidentally fall out of bounds. When this area loads in, we can find an emissive material underground, and when we fly up to it, we'll realize it's moving a bit. Turns out it's the prototype, and he's standing here in its idle pose. He looks extra creepy floating out here in the dark, and this model will be used later, right before we start the train chase. Now, what is interesting is that there is a wrong material assigned to the back of the prototype here. At least there was for me. This jawbreaker-looking pile of shredded paper is supposed to be Catnap's purple fur, but because the incorrect material does not have alpha channels, you get jagged edges where the fur would normally taper off. But let's go back topside for Huggy's chase. So if we start the chase, but remove ourselves from the chase area, Huggy will still run ahead, but we can explore the rest of this hallway. The hallway will curve around to the right as we walk down it, and we eventually come to a set of double doors. If we look out through the windows on them, we can see outside the level. Unfortunately, both set of doors down here do not open, and neither does the set right next to the window that breaks. When we walk in front of the window normally, Huggy will load in up above like this, as he then rotates downward and reaches through to hit the player. He then vanishes for a second, then spawns in T-posing, before warping back into the hallway. They reuse the hurtling animation from earlier in the game for this part as he leaps in, and then screams at us. And if the game is slowed, he'll do the animation twice. That's my fault. Whoops! At this point, I noticed something else out of bounds, and it was Giblet standing idle on a platform. I imagine this is here for the ending of the game, so we'll come back to it later. Anyways, in the middle of the first room of the Huggy chase, he'll run over to here and knock over this shelf. We can then watch this in slow motion as he will do the animation and scream. And then he will just repeat the swinging animation forever. This happens because the game will automatically kill the player if they aren't under the shelf by this point, but are in the pocket before it. So you never see this. There is a safe spot in the chase though, and it's under this shelf in the middle of it. The game doesn't want you to stop moving, but it knows if it tries to jump scare you under the shelf, the result is gonna probably look pretty glitchy. So Huggy will just keep swinging his arms repeatedly until we move some. And when we do move a bit, he'll stop and walk over behind these containers and just wait for us to leave the crouch space under the shelf. So he just stands here like a goof. Then, as we move forward, he'll snap to his next animation as he sends them flying. The chase then continues. When we shut the door after grabbing the battery, Huggy will just run in place here until we move on with the chase. However, if we wait in this room too long, he'll actually break through the door and kill us, and then continue running. Speaking of which, if we just keep following him after this point, we will see that he eventually will reach the end of his movement path and will just stand in the pink goop. This is because the player would have already triggered the cutscene. And for that cutscene, Huggy will snap behind the player with his arm outstretched and then slide through the wall. Here we can see Huggy shriek at us as Kissy stares him down. The Huggy and Kissy bonding part of this cutscene isn't really too interesting behind the scenes, given it's already slow and super slow in bullet time. But the next part is, we can see the prototype load in with his hand already piercing Huggy. He then rotates downwards, lifts Huggy into the air, and then throws Huggy against the wall. Kissy then charges him, and he drops her with a slash of his hand. He then stabs Kissy as well. Mommy Longleg's arm comes out to try to shove us onto the track, but it looks weird because I think it's trying to follow the active camera. The prototype's Kissy arm randomly disconnects too. It almost looks like it's trying to attach to Kissy again before unloading. So now it's time for this train chase. So we run to the train and get inside as fast as possible. And suddenly the prototype will begin stabbing at us through the windows. Soon after, he'll do the ceiling as well. We then pop out of the first train section and grab 2 levers to disconnect the part we just left. This buys us time as we drag over a large battery and plug it in to give the prototype an electric shock. We hand scan our way into the next area, which will need to freeze and shatter this goo. We pull ourselves across some goo, freeze it, and after shattering it, we can use a lever to release a ton of explosive barrels onto the prototype. We hop across a burning area and then make our way into the next interior. This area is more so the same as the first rail car, just don't get baited into getting stabbed. Now we grab a wheel, struggle to figure out where the heck it goes, and then eventually light up this power supply. When we step out, we freeze the prototype in place as we jump off the train right before it crashes. As we come to, there is a brief moment where the prototype seems defeated. But nope, JK LOL. He rolls up on us and stabs our character, as he then catnap drops us into a vat of questionable origins. Giblet comes to our rescue, and then we eventually enter a data storage area. We pull 2 levers, and suddenly the outcome in Chapter 4 doesn't matter anymore, as the doctor rises from the grave. Let's rewind now and break this all down. So first off, let's check on Huggy and Kissy. Normally, you can't get back over here, but that's never stopped me before. Both of them are in pretty bad shape, and we can't interact with them. Eventually, we'll get auto-killed by the prototype though. When we make it into the train, we can see the prototype do an inversion and land on top, where he sticks a perfect landing before unloading. While out here, we can take a look at this looping train tunnel. The background is moving, but the objects where we came from aren't. You normally don't see these, but we will in a bit. If we move back outside the train, we can see that the moving ground doesn't affect us because it's an optical illusion. The prototype can still get us out here though. Back in the train, if we look out the first window to the left, you can see those objects that should be moving but aren't. A similar set of objects on the other wall are moving though. So the legs that kick into the side windows will just spawn in, and they aren't attached to the full model up top. We can also see that the prototype we saw earlier in this area is the holding spot for the one that ends up on the train. As the prototype stabs the ceiling, it's more copies of legs that appear and just poke through like so. Moving on, when we step outside to disconnect the railcar, the prototype will just slide into position. We can watch this bad boy jump and Usain Bolt it down the tunnel after we disconnect the previous section. As we get jump scared, the copy on the wall will default to a T-pose as he just glides in excellence. His jump scare will follow our camera like others, as he just won't let up. I didn't see a shock animation, but we can take a close-up look at the zap effect in slow motion as he sparkles. Before we progress, we can take another look at what the train tunnel now looks like as future parts of the train are loading in. In this next train car, there is a golden prototype trophy you can grab back here, so just a heads up. We also have these bags blocking our way that the prototype can burst through the window and pull out, so here's where they end up. They will fall through the floor and then just float under the side of the tunnel. As we step out into the next section, we'll be able to watch the train slide backwards as the prototype loads in. We can follow the train car further and see it eventually gets warped out of bounds. Back up on the moving train, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but you can freeze the ground before the prototype jumps, and then after he jumps, he will just immediately get frozen, even though you don't. Now, I was pretty excited to see the explosive barrels off camera, so let's check it out in slow motion. As we pull the lever, the barrels begin to roll back and bounce, and then they start exploding one by one. We can see how they just vanish behind the explosion, and then the model is swapped for the prototype as he catches on fire. A burning boy with hops is definitely nightmare fuel. Speaking of a burning boy with hops, I'm moon jumping to make sure I'm not one. The next train car has us going topside, and so just to check, I took the camera down below to see if there was anything in the bottom, and there wasn't. After entering the next interior section, the prototype just gives up chasing us on the walls and will return to his idle standing animation. There's just something way more creepier about this shot here, as he's hanging out above the burning train behind us. Speaking of which, the only thing left over from the previous section is this ominous door. Spooky! Now, there's nothing too interesting until we jump from the train, so we'll hop to that part. Literally. When this door opens, we can see the prototype is just kind of waiting for us to kill him. We can just sit here, and it won't move at all, which is kind of funny. Unfortunately, we can't use the ice hand toggle until we step outside though. Once we've frozen the edgy lad, the train just slides forward and stops as an explosion occurs. And the prototype just stays frozen over here like this. However, see those small explosions? Those are from where we got teleported to. The second we hit the ground, we get moved to a duplicate environment, where Poppy and Giblet are watching the train crash. We see the prototype will rise from the rubble with a few minor scratches, as he then descends from the wreckage and chases our trio. Back in the wreckage though, there's a second copy of the prototype sitting in a T-pose just out of sight. Giblet just kinda warps behind these boxes real fast, and we can see that the prototype will just load in behind where the player is as they give them a free acupuncture session. Poppy just kinda sinks into the ground? YOLO, I guess. We can now watch our character go for a cold dip in this vat of bubblegum as we get dropped in. The prototype then unloads. So I'm gonna pause it here for a second to focus on this area. So these big vats you see right here are actually not the same models for the ones we jumped out towards. This is what those ones look like. There's a lot more of them, and they are not as big. I'm not sure why they didn't make these consistent, but I guess you probably only see these for maybe a frame or two, so perhaps that's why? Anyways, back by the train wreck, you usually can't reach this area, but I wanted to check it out. The whole train wreck has collision, and we are able to climb it like so. The fire over here doesn't hurt us either. Eventually we can work our way down through the rubble and find the back of the train. After we lower down, we can go in the back of the train and find the T-posing prototype. He doesn't have a collider on his model, so we can walk right through him, and the train car lacks an interior as well, and is completely see-through. There's not much else here, but we can see the previous train tunnel in the distance, so let's go over there. Over here we can see the data center doors do not open, and that the train is now completely gone. Only the pink goo remains. Those same smaller barrels can be found over here, like previously described, and we are free to explore this tunnel. So I ran down it. It's quite a long run, and we have to jump over small gaps as we eventually get near the train car. For some reason, touching this train car in the back warps you out farther into the tunnel, which is peculiar. It's repeatable, and I'm unsure why. We can see it's empty inside as we run by the windows though. If we try running farther down the tunnel past it, an invisible prototype will snatch us up and kill us. We just got jump scared by a ghost, folks. Anyways, once we emerge from our cold plunge, we can see Giblet appears right here to shock us back to life. His shock therapy works wonders on our invisible, tense muscles. We can fly around him as he monologues to us, and eventually we'll get up. As we make our way into the data center, there isn't too much to see. There's an inaccessible scaffolding area above us that is a bit of a maze, and down below there's a paper to collect. But that's it. We can get a good old close-up of the doctor though. But with that brings us to the end of Poppy Playtime Chapter 5. I hope you enjoyed this behind-the-scenes journey. Subscribe if you did, and I'll see you all again real soon. Cheers!